Hey there, my name is Cole Adams, and you are watching the best college basketball podcast out there that covers the entire sport of college basketball, brackets, bubbles, and bid stealers. Now, here are your hosts, Sam Fetterman and Jonathan Lidskin.
Season 6, episode 77 of Brackets, Bubbles, and Bit Stealers. I am Sam Fetterman. Jonathan Lidskin is not here with us this afternoon, unfortunately. But this is a weekend preview. We are going to preview the weekend, and of course, we have a great guest. Welcome to Brackets, Bubbles, and Bit Stealers, Brian Ralph.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, I am extremely glad that we have you on the pod today to talk some basketball. Obviously, Brian does great work with Matthew Winnick on the Weekend Under Review. It's part of my rotation every week, both on Fridays and on Mondays. Mondays are tough because there's so much that comes out on Monday. But definitely listen to it, the Ralph Report, which I am going to read, I think, right after this, probably. But we've got to start with Michigan and Michigan State in East Lansing. Actually, I'll get to some of the mid-major stuff from last night. We did not do a mid-major Thursday episode, but we'll start in East Lansing, 8 p.m. tonight on Fox. Unfortunately, only the second biggest game on national TV tonight at 8 p.m. The biggest, obviously, being St. Peter's, Mount St. Mary's in Jersey City, where I will be. But at the Breslin Center, Michigan State. Michigan looked a little shaky, I think, against Nebraska. It did not feel like a dominant performance. I thought Nebraska was probably the better team for most of that game. But the fact of the matter is Michigan still came out with the win. And obviously you don't come out of the game thinking higher of Michigan, but the fact that you come out of the game against a top 5 team thinking lower of Michigan and they won, I think that shows you how good they are. Here's the one thing. I said this on the podcast the moment they won Players Era. I was sitting at the lake at my desk, and I said to Jonathan, I don't care if they win every game by 70. They are losing on January 30th. Today is January 30th, Brian.
Why were you so confident in them losing this game even when they were playing at that level?
Because it's Michigan State, and it's at the Breslin Center.
Crazy things happen. Crazy things happen there. Michigan has not been its best the last really month or so, or I say not their best. They haven't looked like the inevitable force they looked like at Players Era and over Thanksgiving, right? And the fact that they, to your point, beat Nebraska and can win games against good teams without playing their best speaks to how good they are. But if they are going to do the things we expect Michigan to now do, win the national championship, compete for the national championship, make a Final Four caliber run, that's the lens we're looking at Michigan through right now. There are 3 things really they have not done as well the last month or so that were key elements to them making that run and playing as well as they did. Shooting the 3 ball, they were shooting incredibly well from 3 in November and first part of December. I think it was right around 40%, 40%. Since then, this last month, it's been about 30%. Not nowhere near the same caliber of shooting you're getting. When you're turning the ball over as much as Michigan has, that's a problem as well. That's been a consistent thing, though, for them all season long, is worry about turnovers. And also, Yaxel Lendenborg has not been National Player of the Year level good the last month or so. He's been fine, but for Michigan to be a national championship contender and to make the run that they are expected to make and we expect them to make, you need him to be the best player on the court at all times, and he has not been throughout this last month or so. That's going to be interesting, I think, in this game against Michigan State, because obviously the 2 huge front lines going against each other is going to be interesting, but he's got the combination of athleticism and size that very few teams can match, and he is a chess piece that I think could really swing things in Michigan's favor in this matchup if he's playing to his capabilities.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think Lendenberg is the type of big that Michigan State doesn't really have the capacity with their bigs to guard, because he stretches the floor in different ways. He's versatile. He can guard all 5 positions, and he can step out, hit a 3, create. And like, that's not what you're asking Kohler and Cooper to do. I wonder if they're going to put Cam Ward on him. I wonder if they're going to put Cohen Carr on him for stretches. I wonder how they're going to guard him, because I think that it takes a village to guard him. I don't think you can just – I don't think there's one guy in the country that you go out and say, maybe Cam Boozer, but like that you go out and say, yeah, like I'll put you one-on-one with Yaxel Lendenberg in all these positions, and I trust you to be fine with it. And even then with Boozer, like, do you really think he can do that? I don't think there's anyone in the country that you say that about. But for Michigan State, a team that really hasn't had any trouble defending bigs throughout the year because they are so big up front with Cooper and Kohler, and those two guys have been so dominant, and they have second side rim protection, and they have terrific point of attack defense. I mean, it's the number one defense in the country for a reason. But I think Lendeberg is that game breaker type if he's playing at his best. For me, this game, though, you mentioned it with the turnovers. I think guard play is where Michigan State maybe doesn't have like a huge edge, but the point guard position in particular, Michigan State has a gigantic edge. The way that Jeremy Fears has been playing. Jeremy Fears, to me, is as much of a Big Ten Player of the Year contender as Braden Smith and Yaxel Lendeberg at the moment.
Oh, yeah.
Especially if Michigan State continues and goes on to win the Big Ten, which is certainly a possibility at the moment. He will be in that conversation. He willed them back against Rutgers with 29 points and 9 assists. That was a career high. That was like the first time I'd really ever seen him say, look, I'm putting the team on my back and I'm going to score. Usually he's putting the team on his back and he's going to pass. He had 17 and 17 against Maryland. I don't think that Michigan, I don't think Elliot Cadeau is going to have a good day on either end of the floor dealing with that. And I think that I want to see how they defend the ball screens. I want to see how they defend the cutting actions that they use to get Fears passing to guys like Carr, and the post-ups that they use with Kohler, and whether they can drag and whether they can drag some guys out from under the basket and clear out some rebounding lanes, because we know how good Michigan State is on the glass. And both of these teams are tremendous rebounding teams.
Yeah, and that's the rebounding part's interesting because Michigan State makes up for a lack of offensive pop and offensive creators because they're able to rebound so well. They get a lot of second chance points. They limit you to one shot when they're on defense. That's such a big part for them, but obviously that's a big part for Michigan as well. This is a good chance for Fears to really make his case as an All-American, as a Big Ten Player of the Year candidate.
He's easily an All-American. The question right now is he a first-team All-American?
Well, that's what I'm saying, because he has played so well this last month in particular. The issue has been, and you mentioned him not being thought of in the same kind of realm as like a Braden Smith type, because he hasn't had like a moment or a huge game against a huge opponent of this caliber. There's not the markers like we saw Jeremy Fears do this.
Can I zag here?
Yeah.
I think he completely took over the Kentucky and North Carolina games. He
did as well. Those were a while ago, and he did so more so with his playmaking than his scoring.
Yes,
he's added the scoring element to it the last month or so, right? And so if you are Joe Schmo sitting at home after work on Friday, you flip on Michigan State because you want to watch some basketball, and now Jeremy Fears, who you've heard about because of everything he's done against Rutgers and Maryland and Oregon, doing it against Michigan, who you know from Thanksgiving is awesome. And he's doing that. I think that can elevate him into that tier that he deserves to be in, but do it on a wider scale, on a more national scale, because he will have put forth 20 and 10 against one of the best teams in the country.
Right now, Jeremy Fears is number 1 in Big Ten Player of the Year on KenPom. Braden Smith is 2. Yaxel Lendeberg is 3. Keaton Wagler is 4. Bennett Sturts is 5. That feels like a pretty good all Big Ten first team.
It's not bad.
Maybe if Rink Most were fully healthy, he could be in that conversation as well. Bruce Thornton, obviously, another guy in there. TKR has just kind of been playing like crap, so you can't really put him on there.
Yeah, I think with the way Purdue has been, you get your Braden Smith and everybody else kind of falls.
Yeah, okay. The one other guy I would say, Merez Johnson.
Yeah, but he's not on the same caliber as the other 6, 7, 8 we just mentioned. I think he's a pretty good.
I think defensively, what he does is ridiculous. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. He's a valuable player, but I think that locks him in on the second team. The star power of those guys you listed off there are first team worthy.
Yes, I would agree. And Anything else you have on Michigan State? Because I already told you I think Michigan State's going to win. I think the point guard play is going to control this matchup. I think I've never seen a player that's able to control a game without scoring the ball at the point guard spot the way Jeremy Fears does. And I think now that he's scoring the ball, it's even more so. And I think that they'll be able to hold their own on the inside. They'll be able to maybe not let Yaks be the best player on the floor, because I think Jeremy Fears is going to be the best player on the floor. So I think Michigan State's going to win by like 4 or 5.
I have Michigan State winning as well, and it kind of scares me that more people are coming around to Michigan State winning. But I think that Michigan has kind of been playing with fire for a little bit. The defense hasn't been the same level it's needed to be at. Just mentioned stuff for the turnovers and 3-point shooting. Those are all issues. Going on the road here, I lean Michigan State's favor. Fears it has a lot of Rondo to his game. Rajon Rondo, with his ability to control the game without necessarily scoring. He'll do it, obviously, and he's done it this last month. If he's able to do that in this game, Michigan's got no shot.
Yeah, I'm with you on there. Michigan's schedule, by the way, gets more difficult in mid-February when you have UCLA, Purdue, Duke, Minnesota, Illinois, Iowa, Michigan State to close out the season. So this stretch of Nebraska, Michigan State, obviously really, really difficult. But Michigan did kind of have an easier schedule through the early part of Big Ten play, and that is something to note with their schedule at the latter part of Big Ten play, plus the Duke game on February 21st in Washington, D.C., that I feel like I should just try to go to.
That Duke game is going to be absurd.
Yeah, I mean, I've already seen Duke this year. I mean, I saw their only loss at against Texas Tech. I have not seen Michigan this year. It's just like, do I want to miss a potential like NJIT big game for the first time ever and a potential Fordham game, because I'm not getting many Fordham games this year?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm crossing state lines to go to Fordham games tomorrow. So like, I'm doing whatever I can to get to as many Fordham games as possible, because there's not many Saturday home games.
It'd be interesting to see. I think maybe the next 2 weeks will tell you how big that Michigan Duke game is, because if Michigan loses another time or two, I think it's going to take some of the shine off that. It'll still be a big game, obviously, but it won't be what we thought it was going to be in the first week of December.
All right, a couple other big games that I want to have an eye on tonight. If you have anything you can kind of chip in, we've got Arch Barron Cup between Dayton and St. Louis. We've talked a ton about the Billikens all year. We kind of hinted at it on the last pod that Dayton is kind of in free fall mode right now. Yeah. They've now lost 3 in a row: LaSalle, St. Joe's, Rhode Island, and now they have to go play at St. Louis. That building's completely sold out. It is going to be completely like lubricated to the max in Midtown. Robbie Avila got the goggles going on again, and the nation's starting to remember who he is, and it's going to be national TV, and people are going to remember that this was their favorite team in the country 2 years ago when they were at Indiana State with Sharks and Robbie, and now they're going to watch them tonight, and they're going to be like, oh, those guys, yeah, they're good. 21-1, I think, is coming for St. Louis tonight.
I think it is as well. Dayton is in free fall. This Dayton team also plays its best in the biggest games. Like there is something to be said for the way that the offense has kind of cratered the last 3 games. In particular, the defense has not been at the level you would expect it to be at. But you go back and look at Dayton's very, very best performances this season. There were the power conference games they played against Marquette and Georgetown that they won, pushed BYU.
Back when we thought Marquette was a big game.
Back when we thought Marquette was a big game. Any game, and I know Dayton is a better team than Marquette is. But anytime you have an A10, Mountain West, one of those mid-major plus type leagues going up against Power Conference League, those are big games they're going to get up for, right? So Marquette, Georgetown, you win those games, you push BYU to the brink. They came up and they played very well in those games. They played really well against Virginia. The game was much closer than the 13 points it ended up being. And then in conference play, the highest ranked team they played on KenPom was George Washington.
Virginia was up 20 in that game.
Dayton played them pretty close for a while, if I remember correctly.
They kind of pulled it to like 8, I think, at some point, but Virginia was up 20.
Dayton had the first half. Dayton was there in the first half.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Virginia Blue handled business in the second, but Dayton got up for it. I would expect Dayton to get up for this one as well. I think the question is if Dayton has the
firepower,
has the longevity to be able to maintain that level of play, you'll need to beat St. Louis for a while. And I do think St. Louis got out of the look-ahead spot this week. Robbie Avila did save them in that spot. But, yes, this is, I think, St. Louis fully capitalizing on the spotlight they know is going to be on them in this game.
Yeah, and then one other just ginormous rivalry, probably the biggest mid-major rivalry that most people don't know about, Akron against Kent State tonight. For my money, Akron, the best team in the MAC. I know Miami's 21-0, whatever. I watched Akron play Miami. I know Miami won. Akron was the better team. Akron has won 7 in a row since then. They're at home tonight. I expect them to light up the scoreboard as they typically do. Kent State also terrific, 16-5, 7-2. Unfortunately, I do not expect them to get the away upset tonight. You want to move on to Saturday, or do you have anything quick on Akron Kent?
No, I was going to say I think this game is doubly important on top of the rivalry. But Miami, Akron, and Kent State are clearly the 3 best teams in the MAC. I think
Yes.
far and away the 3 best teams in the MAC. Akron doesn't play Miami.
Too.
Akron doesn't play Miami again this season. So their only chances to kind of build yourself up and your big game tests are going to be against Kent State, and this is when they get it home. I agree. I don't know if Akron's better than Miami, but I think it is kind of a neck and neck thing. It would not surprise me if Akron beats them if they were to play again in the MAC tournament. But I would expect this to be like one of the best performances you're going to get from Akron. I think they're going to try and make a statement in this game. It'll be fun to watch, but I would lean Akron potentially winning this game by double digits.
Yeah, I like Akron a lot. Let's move on to Saturday and some of the games on the slate. Let's start in Lawrence at Allen Fieldhouse. BYU in Kansas. This is the game that the media has dubbed AJ DeBonsta versus Darren Peterson, forgetting that there are 8 other players that will be on the floor. But, I mean, obviously the storyline in this game is the NBA draft picks, but I think the game is going to be decided by the other guys on the floor. Those guys are going to score. Those guys are going to play. But Rob Wright was awful against Arizona. And they need him to be better in this game. Now, I don't know how he's going to hold up guarding a guy like Melvin Council if that's his matchup, because you're probably sticking AJ on Peterson in certain spots, because I saw those two match up. I watched the film of them matching up in high school, and like AJ, if there's one thing about him in high school, is he wanted to guard the other team's best player. I think he wants to guard Darren Peterson tonight. I think he's excited to guard Darren Peterson tonight. I think he is really juiced up for the opportunity to go into Allen Fieldhouse and try to win his team a basketball game against Darren Peterson and kind of prove to the world that he's better than Darren Peterson. I think that's the type of thing that he gets up for. But BYU's big situation right now, I mean, Keba Keita is good, but I did not think he had a great game against Arizona. And then they really don't have anything behind him. BYU kept trying to throw different guys out there against Arizona. And eventually they made it a game, but don't kid yourselves, that was not a game for like most of the game.
Yeah.
They only made it a game because the refs wanted them to make it a game. But on the Kansas side of things, like this is Allen Fieldhouse. Like, this is the best home court advantage in the sport. And like, I'll be damned if I'm going to pick against that in a spot like this, where like the fans know what's at stake. Those guys are going to be on it all night. And I think AJ will play a good game. I think Peterson will play a good game. I just think that it'll come down to, hey, I think Kansas is going to be able to find more mismatches and exploit them.
Kansas has been peaking since that loss to West Virginia. Like they have figured out how to work Peterson into the overall lineup that they've had. Because there was a point this season, Peterson had been in and out of the lineup, and he had the long stretch where he was out, and then he would play some minutes, not play some minutes. Kansas was significantly better with him off the court than with him on the court for a good stretch of time there, because the other guys had figured out how to play together and played more kind of team basketball. It helps when you have a Melvin Council becoming Darren Peterson when Darren Peterson wasn't playing, but they moved the ball more. that played more into what Trey White, Melvin Council wanted to do, and they made Floyd Badunga a bigger part of the offense when Peterson wasn't there. Peterson came back and started playing more. They had to figure out how to rework in and get everybody on the same page with a guy who was going to need as many shots as Peterson gets and should get, because he's bleeping awesome. You want him shooting that many shots. In the last 4 games, I know
you can say it on this podcast.
I appreciate that. I know he did not play in the Kansas State game, but they have figured out how to work him into it. We're starting to see them really elevate and get to the best version of themselves with Peterson and an idea of what that looks like. I expect that to really be the case in this game against BYU. But to your point, every time DeBonsa has gotten not challenged in his career, but had a chance to really prove that he is the guy. Because remember, back when he was a sophomore in high school, he was billed as a better prospect than Cooper Flagg was, and Flagg was a junior. Since that time, he has taken every opportunity he possibly can to remind everybody that he is the guy. And Peterson is good enough to really challenge him on that. But even at Team USA for the FIBA stuff this offseason, the U19, everything that came out of the practices from that was that, oh, yeah, DeBonsa went ahead and proved again that he is the guy. It served as a reminder that he is the best player on this team and in this class. I think he will get up for this. I think he'll try and play well, obviously, in this and try and outduel Peterson. My fear with that is something we saw a little bit, I think, too much of the second half of BYU Arizona, where BYU defaulted to just, all right, AJ ISO. Every single time down the court was AJ ISO. And he was getting shots he liked. He was getting to his spot. He was getting good looks. He was missing a lot of them, just straight up just missing. It was an off night for him. You can see that in his free throw shooting. Typically, no one's defending you on those. He was missing more of those than he normally does. Just an off night shooting. So I'm not as concerned about his play from that standpoint. But BYU stopped moving the ball, stopped getting others involved. I understand, Rob Wright did not have a good game. I would lean into the lack of motion and kind of function on offense being a big reason why. They need to have some of that in the game, but your game plan to beat Kansas cannot be throwing the ball to DeBonsa in ISO situations for 18 of 20 minutes in the second half of the game. I want to see BYU get everybody involved and motion things a little bit more and actually run some stuff other than just isolation ball.
Also want to keep an eye on this. Season as a whole, AJ DeBonsa, 29 points per 40 minutes, 56 effective field goal percentage, 12.9 turnover rate. In away games, which have been 3 so far, 22 points per 40 minutes, 47 effective field goal percentage, 20 turnover rate. Just something to keep an eye on. His numbers have gone down in road games. They have gone down in Tier A games fairly significantly compared to what they are in other games. And if you look at the games in where he was the Ken Pom MVP, that stretch where he had 4 out of 5 Ken Pom MVPs, obviously one of them was Clemson, but the other 3 were the mid-major games that they played in December. So I'm not concerned about it. But it is a statistic that I do think is worth mentioning at the moment, because Darren Peterson hasn't had those mid-major games. He's been showing up against everyone.
DeBonsa could use a good, efficient, productive performance in a win against an elite team. He could use another one of those.
Yes, I think everybody could use one of those. I think I could use one of those.
We could use one of those for the way scouts are talking about his draft stock a little bit more hesitantly than they were a month ago. He could really use one of those games.
Yeah, no, I would love to go out there at Allen Fieldhouse, just pick up a Shahada and like be talked about on Brackets, Bubbles, and Bid Steelers forever. Like I'd be down for that.
It'd be great. That would be great.
I'd love to go for 26 on 15 shots and 7 of 15 from the field, hit a couple threes, get to the line for about like 8 or 9 free throws. Like I'd love to do that myself.
There you go. You do that, we'll talk about you a weekend under review.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. Couple other games this weekend. Kind of the other one I want to get into right now, St. Mary's Gonzaga.
Yep.
We haven't really talked a lot about either of these teams over the last month or so on this podcast, but Gonzaga's only loss is still that Michigan game. They escaped last Saturday against San Francisco. They have wins over Kentucky, UCLA, Alabama, Creighton, Santa Clara, all by double digits. And this is a home game for them. They are looking to go to 10-0 in the WCC. St. Mary's, I don't think this year is quite the same type of St. Mary's team. They're not like as stifling defensively. They're still very good on the glass, but I don't think they're quite as good on the defensive end as we've come to expect from them. They're playing a little bit faster. I don't think their point guard play is close to the level that it has been. They don't have the Augustus Marciulionis or the Aiden Mahaney type guy. Mikey Lewis can really score. Paulius Morauskas can really score. But neither of those guys are high assist guys. And as fun as guys like Wessels and McKeever are, they're not Mitchell Saxon either. I think that Gonzaga is going to kind of show like a level in this game that St. Mary's just doesn't have.
St. Mary's doesn't have the talent of the best teams, but they are still I'm trying to figure out the appropriate term to capture this, because they are really good at beating up on bad teams. Like the structure that they play with and the system that Randy Bennett has there, it allows them to really beat up on bad teams that do not stay disciplined, that beat themselves essentially. So that's what St. Mary's asks you to do. When they have played good teams, they played 6 games this season against top 100 teams, according to Torvik. In those 6 games, they're 3-3 and 152nd in offensive efficiency. Like the offense falls off a cliff for them whenever they get tested, particularly against teams that have athletes, that have length, and can match them physically. Gonzaga can do that even if Graham Ike doesn't play. We know Braden Huff's not going to play. Ike's status, I believe, is still up in the air for this game as of last check. Even if they don't play, that may cause Gonzaga to speed the game up even more, because you're just going to play a bunch of guys between 6'4" and 6'7", and you're going to try and run, which is exactly the opposite of obviously what St. Mary's wants to do. And I don't think St. Mary's is good enough this year to have a counter to that, to force Gonzaga or a team as good as Gonzaga to play at the pace St. Mary's wants to. And we've seen it time and time again with them where they struggle to create their own offense. And this is going to be another one of those games, I think, where we see the limitations of this roster for the Gales.
Yeah, I'm with you. And kind of my line, the company line about St. Mary's over the last couple of years has been when they run into a team more athletic than them, they'll lose.
Yeah.
I don't even think that's what this is. I just think that they are not as good as they have been. I think they're good enough to win comfortably in these WCC games, but like they weren't allowing 70 points to Portland last year. They were allowing, I guess they allowed 66. I guess it was 2 years ago that they allowed like 28 to them or something. Yeah, 76. That was Pacific anyway. So, but yeah, like they allowed 82 to Washington State, 76 to Seattle. Like they have not been able to kind of control pace the way that they are used to, and they're still playing slow games. But like you wouldn't be caught dead in a 71 possession game with last year's St. Mary's team. The only teams that did that were Akron and Cal Poly. Like those teams did not stop running the ball at all. Washington State did that to them. Florida Atlantic got them to 76. Vanderbilt got them to 72. That's kind of where we're at with this. And Washington State's not even like a fast team. I think Gonzaga can kind of exert their will. St. Mary's will probably beat everybody besides them and Santa Clara in this league, and maybe they'll beat Santa Clara at home. Who knows? But that's kind of where I'm at with St. Mary's and Gonzaga. St. Mary's will make the NCAA tournament. They will.
They will, and I will pick them to lose in the first round.
Yeah, I can't really wait to pick against St. Mary's in the NCAA tournament this year. But Gonzaga, I still think is as long as they can get fully healthy by the end of the year. Yeah. They're as much a national title contender as anybody.
I've done a huge flip on them from where I was in the preseason. So in the preseason, I thought they were a good team, but had a real ceiling. And everything we've seen from them this year suggests that ceiling is good enough to potentially win the national championship, certainly make the Final Four. I don't know if I'd put them on the same plane as Arizona and Michigan, but they're right there with everybody else. certainly. And that was not something I necessarily expected coming in. I think they've gotten better guard play than I expected in the preseason. And they've really maximized those 6-7 wings on the roster. Grant Foster has been awesome. Morley's been awesome. I think that's been a difference that I wasn't necessarily expecting them to play this well this season.
All right, let's go some rapid fire stuff on the Saturday slate as well. We've got Auburn, Tennessee. What are your quick summarized thoughts on that one?
Keyshawn Hall, can Tennessee slow him at all? That's kind of what Auburn boils down to. I've been really impressed with the job Stephen Pearl has done this year. There have been a couple of times this season where it felt like the season was kind of teetering on a brink for Auburn. And every time that's happened, they have responded with a big win or responded with some great performances in a row. I think he has really done a good job of making that program his this year. Still, any success Auburn has or is not going to have against the best teams in the SEC is going to come down to, is Keyshawn Hall the best player on the court or not? And if he's better than Nate Ament in this game, Auburn wins. Tennessee's been playing a little bit better of late. Gillespie's been more efficient. Ament's been more efficient. And they've really leaned into the fact that those are their only two offensive players they can rely on. I think the more they do that, the better Tennessee is going to be. I'm excited to see this one play out, but I would expect it to be a 5-point game either way.
Yeah, kind of my quick thoughts. I've been kind of talking over the last couple of years a lot about Auburn's struggles on the road. And I thought that was going to continue through this year. Obviously, they had the Purdue game where they got blown out, Arizona where they got blown out, lost to Mizzou, lost to Georgia. But then they go and they win at Mississippi by double digits, and they beat Florida on the road, and they kind of controlled that entire game start to finish. So maybe they're turning a corner on the road. Like, this has been a thing for them for a couple years now, especially if you go back to that 22 team where they were pretty bad on the road, even though they were like a 1 seed, the number 1 overall seed. They like last year, obviously it wasn't an issue because they were awesome.
Yeah.
But it's been a notable thing for them over the last couple of years. I don't know. Like, I think this is a good matchup for Auburn, though. Like,
it is.
Don't know if they can get stops, but like, I don't know if they really need to get stops because Tennessee, I don't think, has a lot of ways to attack them.
Tennessee stops themselves quite often.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing we've seen with Tennessee in the last few games.
Tennessee is back to score because you have to versus score because you can.
Correct.
Of the Dalton Connect, Chaz Lanier era is long gone for Tennessee right now. Nate Ament is very much a score because you have to player. Any quick thoughts on SMU Louisville or Kentucky Arkansas? I'll take the other one.
SMU Louisville, Michael Brown needs to play well and play efficiently. Like, speaking of seasons that are on the brink, it feels like Louisville's is really teetering there. Since he went out with his injury, they have not been good on either end of the court. They have not had anybody who can collapse a defense and get in the middle of the defense the way he can. They have not maintained where they need to be defensively without him either. SMU is not a world beater by any stretch of the imagination, but they are a good enough team to be an NCAA tournament team. And I fully expect that's where they'll end up. I fully expect them to finish like top 5 in the ACC, just offhand here. Boopy Miller is somebody who can make Louisville pay for all of their defensive issues that they have and can get into the paint and do what he wants to do. Louisville is at its best when Michael Brown is maybe not the best player on the court, but is able to dictate the way the game is played. He needs to do that in a way he has not done since he's been back. If that happens, then Louisville has a chance. But I would not be shocked if SMU won that one.
Yeah, and then I'm going to go on Kentucky, Arkansas pretty quickly here. Arkansas has been a team that has risen to big moments this year. Kentucky has been a team that has fallen from big moments. They have not risen to the occasion. This game is at Arkansas. It's going to be a big event because it's Cal against Kentucky.
Yep.
And Arkansas has big game players. Like, I know this is cliche. I know that nobody wants to hear me say this. They want to hear me talk about basketball analysis from a basketball analysis perspective. But Arkansas has big game players. Kentucky does not have big game players. And until Kentucky proves that they have big game players, I'm not going to pick them to win a big game on the road against a team that does.
Arkansas also has the highest wins above bubble of any team in the country for home games this season. Like, they are better at home than anybody in the country is.
Yes. Just some more quick stuff on Saturday's games. Texas A&M and Georgia, if you have anything on that, or Ohio State, Wisconsin, or UConn, Creighton, San Diego State, Utah State.
I love the fact that A&M was in first place in the SEC.
I think it's awesome.
It's fantastic, but a lot of what they have done, a lot of their success has been at home. It has been it's a backloaded SEC schedule for A&M. Like, we're going to find out the next couple of weeks how legitimate the Aggies really, really are. But a lot of their big games to this point have been at home, right? The biggest road win they have is going to Auburn and winning that game, but they were famously a millisecond away from losing that game. This game being at Georgia, I think is going to be the first real test to see if A&M is able to hold up, because after Georgia, go play at Bama, Florida comes home, you get Florida at home, have Missouri, then you go play at Vandy. Like, if you're going to handle that stretch and you're going to come out of it on the other side still in the mix in the SEC title race, going and beating Georgia is a game you should have. So I'm very interested to see A&M's ability and how they play here going to Athens.
Yeah, I also just wanted to mention there will not be a Saturday Night Live tomorrow night. I'm going to go in a little bit and talk about the 1 o'clock game to watch tomorrow. That is obviously San Diego State and Utah State, and just a matchup between the two best teams, arguably the two best teams, probably the two best teams, considering San Diego State has beaten New Mexico. The two best teams in the conference, Utah State at the Spectrum. I think that's a really, really tough place to go and win. I know that UNLV beat them, but like that's like UNLV is every year going to get like 3 wins that you can't explain.
UNLV exists to throw a wrench in the Mountain West standings. That's the only reason they're there, is to get a handful of wins that we have no idea how or why they got them.
Yeah, and for me, this game kind of comes down to, I think you look at the turnover battle. I don't know how San Diego State's guard play is going to react to the pressure that Utah State brings to the way that they will guard them. MJ Collins and Mason Falslev on the wings, and I mean Falslev has just continued to evolve as a player. Like, for how good he was as a freshman, for how good he was as a sophomore, he's just even much better now as a junior. I loved him from the first moment I watched him in his first game as a freshman against the South Dakota School of Mines 2 years ago. And now he's the best player in the Mountain West.
Him against Miles Bird is going to be a lot of fun. Individual matchup wise, I know DeBonsa and Peterson is going to be.
No, I'm taking this one.
But this one's going to be a lot of fun as well.
Yeah, Utah State's ability to force turnovers against San Diego State's guards, I think, is going to be the key in this one. And then one other mid-major game to watch on Saturday, Montana State and Portland State. Have not really talked Portland State a lot this year, but I watched them on film last night, just trying to prep for this show. Terry Miller and Trayvon Minott, one of my favorite duos of post and wings in the country for bigs at a mid-major level. Miller can stretch it, he can pass it. Minott is just this physical specimen down low. Jalen Henderson, really, really good passer, really, really good kind of controlling the pace of the game. Meanwhile, Montana State, again, another team I haven't talked a ton about, but we've talked a lot of. We have talked more, I think, about the Big Sky this year on the podcast than we have any other year, which I think is a fun thing. I think the Big Sky is okay. Big Sky is the most fun mid-major this year that you haven't been watching.
Okay.
Can we agree that the Big Sky is probably the most fun league that people don't watch enough of?
I don't know if I'll go the most fun, but it is a lot of fun. It is
this
a lot
particular year, this Big Sky, I think it's really, really competitive. I think that this year's Big Sky Starch Madness tournament, and I've got the Starch Madness T-shirt back home. This is going to be one of my favorite conference tournaments. You got Portland State, Montana State at the top. Idaho is also like a really good team when they get going. Weber State has had their moments. Idaho State has had their moments. I'm still not out on Eastern Washington. I know that that's a crazy thing to say. And like Northern Colorado's been awful in conference play, but like I'm not out. I'm not all the way out on them either. Like, I think that there is a way that they could get better going into the Big Sky tournament. So yeah, we're kind of on that. Love the Big Sky this year. All right, 20 minutes left in the show. Let's get to Sunday's games, unless there's anything else you have on Saturday.
Nothing else I got on Saturday, but I'm glad that we have some big games on Sunday, capitalizing on the first Sunday without NFL games of the year. It's good to have some of these spread out over the course of the weekend.
Okay, I lied. I have one more thing to talk about for Saturday.
What do you got?
Our Maryland Eastern Shore Hawks going for a 5-0 start in MEAC play. Cleo Hill's team really hoping that our boys, the Hawks, can get it done.
Is this the first time they would have been 5-0 in MEAC play?
I think it was the first time they were 2-0 in MEAC play.
It's not a program that has ever been good. Ever been good.
Never. They have not won a regular season title since 1974.
Oh my goodness.
They've never made an NCAA tournament. In 1974 was the first year they were Division I. They were not eligible to play in the NCAA tournament. They played in the NIT.
I don't know. Like their ability to capture this too, and the last two have been close games too.
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't watch those games because you have to download 7 different VPNs on your computer to watch the MEAC for some reason.
Yeah, surprisingly, there's not a massive desire.
Even the games that are on ESPN Plus. I wanted to watch the Norfolk State game a couple of weeks ago, and I straight up couldn't. All right, Sunday, Illinois, Nebraska, or Alabama, Florida. Where do you want to start?
Let's start Alabama, Florida, because Todd Golden and Nate Oates are taking shots at each other.
Oh, yes, they are.
That one is going to be interesting, and I think Florida holds all the cards in this one, to be totally honest with you. Bediako's playing. They've gone back and forth about whether Bediako should play, whether Nate Oates should have gone out and tried to get Bediako to come back. Bottom line is this. Alabama is injured, and even with Bediako, does not have a massive front line. They struggle on the glass. They struggle in the paint. All the areas that Florida is phenomenal at, right? Top 2 rebounding team in the country. They were the best front court in the country last year. You could argue if they're the best front court in the country this year. There are a lot of good ones. Phenomenal front court that's won them some games, and the backcourt has not played well for Florida. Well, the backcourt has started to play well. Boogie Flynn and Xavier Leo started finding themselves and coming into their own, playing the best basketball they've played since they got to Gainesville. I think Bama's only chances in this game, because they're not going to win the glass. They are not going to do some of the small things that teams can do to mitigate maybe a talent disadvantage, because Florida's got all of those advantages. They need to just shoot the piss out of the ball and make a ton of threes, which, again, not out of the realm possibility for Alabama. That's what they want to do. They got to have that happen, and or LeBaron Philon has to clearly be the best player on the court and go for 30+, which is not a huge ask from him either. It is a tall ask, but it's something he's more than capable of doing. I think,
especially against Florida's guards.
Correct. But I think with this game being in Gainesville, the only real paths, or the only non-fluky paths for Bama to get a win here, is to make a ton of threes or just have LeBaron Philon put forth his best game of the season.
And that's the thing, that's not fluky for Alabama. That's what they are as a team. I think that's what gives them a chance in every game. But when I look at Florida and I look at Alabama, and I've been wrong on this point before, but the teams that have given Alabama some trouble are teams that play multiple bigs in the non-conference. Arizona plays multiple bigs at times. Gonzaga played multiple bigs. Purdue plays multiple bigs. And I think that's something that, obviously, Clemson did it as well a little bit, St. John's too. But Clemson almost beat them at home. St. John's isn't very good, and they dropped 96 on Alabama. I think Florida's going to drop 90 in this game. It's just up to Alabama to also drop 90.
Correct. Yeah, for all this stuff about Bediako, there is a reason why Nate Oates went out and got Bediako to play.
There's a reason why he's standing this firm on it.
He knows he needs help in the middle. And if you need help in the middle, Florida is not the team you want to play.
And I will say, though, I do think he's been good, Bediako.
Yeah. The first 2 minutes was okay.
This is not James Najee. This is not Abdullah Ahmed. This is not London Johnson, Thierry Darlan, those guys who've all sucked. Straight sucked. Like, Thierry Darlan is like the worst offensive player in the WCC.
This is someone who was up for G League All-Star voting. I think
Yeah,
they took him down. They took him down once SEC fans got in there. But somebody who was up for G League All-Star voting.
God, I miss Jaden Bediako. But Charles Bediako, this is a guy who was a key piece of the number 3 defense in the country. I still think Clowney was probably like the linchpin of that. Although Bediako was extremely important to it. Gurley was important as well, I think. Brandon Miller was not a bad defender either. But overall, he was a key piece of that defense. And he's back now. And I don't think it'll stop Florida from dropping 90 because I still think they're going to kill on the offensive glass as a whole. Mm-hmm. But I do think it gives Alabama more bodies to make the game easier for them, to make the game, to elongate the game in that sense, and give them the ability to let their guards flow free if they get a good Aiden Holloway performance. Obviously, Amari Allen, we don't know if he's going to be playing, but Holloway probably will, as he did in the last game. And I think that Alabama has every chance to drop 90. But, on the road, give me the Gators.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Illinois, Nebraska. Let's go to that one. It's another big one for Nebraska.
Yeah, and I believe Rink Moss status is still up in the air. Rink Moss status is still up in the air.
I'm hoping he plays. I'm hoping he plays as well, but if he plays, it obviously changes the dynamic here. This is the return game from Nebraska's. Let's see. Went to the ER due to severe dehydration after returning from Michigan. He felt better Friday morning, watched film, and went through non-contact practice. If he responds well, he should be available versus Illinois. That is from Robin Washut, the Nebraska senior team writer for Husker Online.
Okay. So then we
just got that alert on my phone right now. Thank you, Jeff.
We will chalk it up that he's going to play. I think that sounds fairly positive. Not that he was fairly dehydrated, but that he's going through workouts and they're anticipating seeing what goes on this weekend. So I would expect him to play in that game. Even so, this is the return game, obviously, from when Nebraska went and won at the buzzer in Champaign. Marcus Lawrence hit that 3. So many things went right for Nebraska in that game that I don't know if they can expect it to repeat itself, even though Illinois is shorthanded without Kylan Boswell in this game. Just in that game for Nebraska, Price Sanford had 32 points in that game. Don't know if you're going to get that again from somebody. You also shot 46.2% from 3, made 12 of your 26 attempts. Great 3-point shooting night. One guy goes off for 30 plus, and you need a shot at the buzzer to beat Illinois. I'm not saying Nebraska can't do that again, because I continue to be incredibly impressed with Nebraska every time I see them play. But I'm also incredibly impressed with Illinois every time I see them play. And I think Illinois' recipe for success, even without Boswell, is more repeatable than Nebraska's is. Nebraska goes cold. You saw what happened against Michigan. Like, they got to a tight game, couldn't figure out how to get some offense. They had nobody to turn to create some offense, nobody to turn to make something happen when they needed something to happen the last 3, 4, 5 minutes of that game. I don't know if we're going to get somebody scoring 30 plus for Nebraska in this one, and I kind of think that's what you need to beat this Illinois team.
Yeah, I think kind of the key for Nebraska has kind of been going nuclear early and not needing to have somebody take over the last 5 minutes of a game. Yeah. As you mentioned, I look at Sanford's games and Lawrence, and like they even did that against Michigan. They scored 50 in the first half. It's just that Michigan scored 48. They were right there with them, so it didn't matter. Michigan clawed their way back into it because they're Michigan. But yeah, I mean, Nebraska down a whole bunch of bodies. They are not the team that they like. It obviously Matt's going to play, but like who knows about Frager?
Yep.
So that's obviously a big deal. I think that changes a lot. I think Illinois, like I didn't come out of the Nebraska-Illinois game saying, oh, Illinois is not good. I think that was Nebraska's for real type thing. And I know Keaton Wagler was great in that game, but Keaton Wagler has gotten significantly better since then. The way that you game plan for Illinois is now significantly different than it was back then.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Illinois is a much better – they haven't lost since then. They're a much better team than they were on that time. If you go to barttorvik.com and you look at since the 14th of December, which was the day after that game, the number 3 team in the country is the Illinois Fighting Illini. They are the number 1 offense in the country by over 2 points against Texas Tech, over 3 against Houston, which is number 3. By the way, Houston number 3 in that stat. Keep an eye. Cougars are there. Who do they even play? Oh, they play Cincinnati, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't really give a shit about that game.
Yeah, Houston's fine. Houston's got some games coming up in the back end of their schedule. That is,
they've got that stretch.
Yep.
February 16th, Iowa State away. February 21st, Arizona home. Monday, February 23rd, big Monday at Allen Fieldhouse.
Yep.
Those are the 3.
Yep.
For the Cougars to watch out for, and all. Did you hear all that?
I did not. My internet blipped.
Okay, I couldn't tell if that was mine or yours.
I believe it was mine.
Okay. And then, I think that's most of the weekend slate. I'm going to talk a little bit about the MAC for a second.
Go right ahead.
Because Jonathan wants me to talk more about the MAC on the show. Anyway, tune in, 3 o'clock on Twitter, MAC Spaces. If you're listening to this podcast right now and you've made it this far to the 52-minute mark of the live show, hopefully there's a couple of you still with us. But if you've made it to this point, then you're probably interested in my work. You probably have read some of my MAC stuff. You should probably tune in. But tonight, we've got a nice MAC slate. One of the games that I'm most interested in, obviously aside from the game that I'll be at, Fairfield and Iona. Fairfield won 2 in a row last week. They've kind of figured out a little bit more. They obviously had the losses to Marist and Siena, but they are 5-2 in their last 7. That freshman lineup starting to kind of come together. They play the 4 freshmen. They allowed 61 and 55 to Niagara and Canisius. And Iona is the worst offense in MAC play in the conference. They're playing really slow. I think this game is going to be a slow-paced game. I think it's going to be a battle on the glass, and I think Fairfield has the chance to win that game on the glass. But it's on the road. Iona's been unbelievable at home this year. They are undefeated at home since January 1st. They're 5-0 in those games, and winless on the road in that same time. So who knows what's going to happen in that one? But I think that is a key matchup to look into. In the middle of the MAC standings, both teams around that 6-5, 5-6 mark at the moment. Sacred Heart and Quinnipiac. Quinnipiac coming off the loss to Marist. Sacred Heart coming off of the 4 consecutive wins. They did not quite have that offensive explosion against Canisius or Niagara last weekend, but they were able to get the wins, holding those teams to 66 and 70. I don't think you're holding Quinnipiac to 66 or 70 at Hamden. I think Quinnipiac's going to score 80 points in this game. Now, the question is going to be, is Sacred Heart also going to score 80 points? It's kind of similar to what I was saying about Florida, Alabama. And I think that Sacred Heart has every opportunity to do so if they can get going early, if they can hit their shots. But I think for them to win those games and not even saying it's an impressive win for them to beat Canisius or Niagara, because it's really not at home, but for them to be able to stack 2 wins, important wins to get from 3-6 to 5-6 in MAC play without scoring more than 71 points, that's big for them. Because their previous 3 wins in MAC play, 87 points at the Mount, 86 at Siena, 105 at Rider. To win games, to be able to just get a win on a night where you're not playing good offense and do it twice in a row, that's big in the standings. It's not big for how good they are as a basketball team. It's big in the standings. And I think that's kind of what I want to talk about for the MAC tonight, aside from the game that I'll be at. Mount St. Mary's, St. Peter's. The Mount is the only team to have beaten St. Peter's. Actually, no, because Merrimack just beat them. The Mount was the first team to beat St. Peter's in conference play this year, which is such a weird one. You wouldn't think that the Mount would have the good matchup there because the Mount turns it over a million times and St. Peter's forces a million turnovers. You would think that's just that type of game that would happen with the way that St. Peter's plays its zone. Mount St. Mary's turned it over 14 times. They only hit 6 threes, but they got to the line a ton. St. Peter's didn't make their shots. They fouled Brent Bland out. They did not get a good Bryce Heaton performance. They did not get a good Lucas Scroggins performance. I wonder if Mount St. Mary's will hold up in that same vein. But the other key for Mount St. Mary's recently has been A.K. Kebe. He had a great game against Ryder last Saturday. I'm curious to see whether he continues to get better for Mount St. Mary's. I'm sure you don't have anything to add on the MAC.
Not that you didn't cover.
All right, the one last thing that I want to get into. We have to talk a little bit of Big East because there is a Big East game tonight, Providence-Villanova.
Yep.
Providence is 2-8. They lost to your favorite team in the country, the Georgetown Hoyas.
Healthy Hoyas, man. Healthy Hoyas are still dangerous.
Winnick told me last night that I had to get a Georgetown reference in on you. Are you back in on the Hoyas with 2 wins in a row going to Butler tomorrow?
I am not back in on Georgetown the way that I was during that 4-0 start in the preseason. But I do think they are better than they showed during that 6-game losing streak when they're healthy, or when they have Iwuchukwu in particular. I do think that they are not a pushover. Better teams should still beat them, but they're not a pushover.
Yeah, UConn going to Creighton. We've talked about UConn. I think UConn. Can I say I think UConn has a really good chance of losing this game?
You can.
That's kind of like one of my hot takes for the weekend. I'm going to go all the way and say it. I think Creighton beats UConn. Like, Creighton's defense is bad, but like UConn's offense is bad.
It would be wild for Creighton to go from losing to Marquette by, it ended up being 27, to losing that game and then going and beating UConn.
Yeah, but like UConn has always struggled in Omaha. They won for the first time there last year because Liam McNeely had 37 points, one of the greatest performances I've ever seen from a freshman until last weekend. McDermott has had Hurley's number.
Yeah, the 2024 team that buzzed through everybody.
That was the most. That was the only loss that is more obvious than Michigan tonight.
Okay,
that's the only loss in the history of Brackets, Bubbles, and Bit Steelers that is more obvious and like planned out. Like we had that loss like 2 months in advance.
It'll be an interesting game to see for sure, because Creighton.
I just think UConn's due to lose a game. Like they're due to lose a game.
They have played with fire too many times, and
they're due to lose a game, and it better be tonight, because I do not want to go to the Garden and see them lose next week. I will be pissed off.
I hate to say it because I love the Big East, but they would have lost a game or two by now if they were playing a non-Big East schedule.
Oh yeah, no, easily for sure. But they better lose. They better lose this weekend, because they better not freaking lose at the Garden. All right. Anything else you got on this weekend?
Nothing else I got on this weekend. I do kind of wish the schedule from next weekend was this weekend. That's when you have a lot of the big rivalry games. That's when you have a lot of the high-profile matchups. They like doing that after a football end.
Next weekend is all Patriots all the time.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So move those games to this weekend when there is no football. There is no Super Bowl people are waiting for. The only thing on tap right now is college basketball. Move all those high-profile games, put them this weekend. Instead of next weekend. That's the only thing.
Fair.
That's the only thing.
That's fair. I guess it's not all Patriots all the time, because I am going to 3 games in a 2-day span. But go Pats, and we will see you next time on Brackets, Bubbles, and Bit Steelers. If you came to hear about Tyler Self and what he's up to, you came to the right place. If you came to hear about Brian Ruff's Georgetown Hoyas, you came to the right place. And if you came to hear about the latest happenings with Caleb Grill, you came to the right place. This is season 6, episode 77 of Brackets, Bubbles, and Bit Steelers. We will see you not tomorrow night. We will see you on probably Tuesday night, maybe Sunday night. for the next episode of Brackets, Bubbles, and Bit Steelers. We'll see you next time.